You are listening to the podcast for learning the language of A Course in Miracles so you can understand the meaning, embody the message, and live the teachings as a way of life. Welcome to episode 34 of this podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Jennifer McSween, creator of this podcast and the Course in Miracles practice coach for taking those who are studying the course from information to application. On this week's episode, I'm going to talk about another teaching that is central to the unique perspective of A Course in Miracles, and that is also often misunderstood by many, if not all, students of the course, especially in the early stages of studying the course, making it difficult for them to learn or embody and apply what the course is teaching. Now, we all come to the course holding a perspective that's radically different from that of the course. I always say, I like to say that A Course in Miracles wasn't written for a body of people or students, body of people out there who are known as Course in Miracles students, but rather for spiritually oriented, open-minded individuals who very much come from the world with the world's perspective, who are looking for another way to experience peace and healing and be happy. And something about the course or the course's message resonates with them on a certain level, and they feel led to explore or study the course further, and so we become students of a course. So we come to the course with this radically different perspective that's very much based on the world's perspective. And it is also based on a radically different thought system. So when the idea, I need do nothing, is taken outside the context of the thought system of A Course in Miracles, it is often misperceived that the Course is suggesting that we should become ascetic or stoic, that we should avoid doing things in the world or involving ourselves in the lives of others. Perhaps we should even deny our feelings and take a mystic's approach and spend our life, either meditating or in esoteric practices or studies, detaching ourselves from what takes place in the physical world in order that we experience the inner peace and the healing or happiness that we came to the Course seeking. However, nothing, no pun intended, could be further from the truth. In the sentence, I need do nothing, the operating word is need, meaning that the idea of needing something or needing to do something comes from a perception of lack or fear and is a direct reflection of entertaining the ego's thought system that says we are our bodies, separate individuals, and as such, we can be attacked, hurt, changed, affected, or be lacking in some way as a result of what we do, have, or experience, and by what takes place in the world. This is the perspective with which we all come to the Course. And it is this perspective that is behind any form of pain, fear, or lack we see and experience in our lives and in the world, although we're not aware of it. And it's that need to be more peaceful, less fearful, and to experience a sense of wholeness that brings us to the Course to search the peace and healing that we're seeking. Now, in the episode of the same title, I shared the acronym for fear as false evidence that you have accepted as real. Now, the false evidence in question is always some circumstance, condition, or situation that appears threatening to you as a body or someone else's body. And you have accepted the appearance of that threat to be real and perceive your body or that of another's to be in danger. Naturally, you will feel fearful and feel the need to defend or protect that body in some way. Any action you take from this perspective will be from a perspective of fear. or a place of fear. Because it is not what you do or what happens, but how you look at it, your perception, that determines the way you experience anything. And so taking action from a perspective of fear will not lead you to experience a fearless or peaceful outcome, regardless of how well-intentioned or noble your actions may be. The teaching that we need do nothing is to help us realize that when we feel fearful or threatened in and by anything in the world, it is because we are identifying with or accepting the ego's thought system as the truth. And with this realization, you can simply choose again, or as the Course puts it, or choose again as the Course puts it, which basically means choose the other thought system, the Holy Spirit's thought system, which will lead you to see yourself not as a separate individual, not as a body, but as a spiritual idea in the mind that is God, making you and all others one with God. When you hold this perspective, what you will experience is some form of safety and wholeness, and any action you take will be without fear, from a place of peace and from a place of love. What this means is you will look at the situation, the circumstance, or condition with neutrality, without feeling threatened, without feeling the need to protect or defend a vulnerable body. There is nothing to avoid, defend against, or fear possible loss as a result of its occurrence. You see, it was because of Helen's concern for the life of her body in a situation that she found fearful that led her to receiving this teaching, I need do nothing. And the situation was this. Helen was terrified of an impending elevator strike in the building in which she and her husband lived. Remember, back in those days, many elevators were controlled by human operators. There was actually someone in the elevator who would be taking it up and down from each floor. And so they were controlled by human operators rather than by push button, like what became the new thing, and then eventually we're still doing push button. We no longer need operators. So a strike would have meant no elevator to get up to and down from their 16th floor apartment. Helen feared that climbing the stairs might cause a heart attack. Again, it was very much a concern about her body. And so acting on that fear, she and her husband actually rented a room in a nearby hotel and moved out for a week, only to find that the strike was called off. It never happened. So they had acted from fear, and the outcome was an unnecessary inconvenience and expense. The teaching to need do nothing was given to Helen to teach her how to apply what she was being taught in the message of the Course, the dictations she had been receiving. She was being taught to recognize and identify with her true self, that her true self, which was not her body, and to, as it says in the Course, to utterly forget her body. Who she was, her true self, knew that fear in any form was neither real nor valid, and therefore wouldn't take action based on a fear-based perception. Feeling she needed to, and then taking action on the fear-based perception, she acted contrary to what she was being taught, reinforcing the misperception of herself as a body. This is the very misperception the teachings of A Course in Miracles is intended to correct. Now remember that Bill and Helen represent all of us. So how we are to understand the meaning of the teaching, I need do nothing, is not to look at it as being told that we shouldn't do things in the world, nor that we should avoid, deny, or dismiss our feelings or concerns about what we experience or what goes on in our lives and in the world, but rather become aware that it is the way we are being in the world, who we're telling ourselves we are, that determines how we show up and whether we feel safe or fearful. Feeling that we need to do anything is always and only because we're identifying with our body as who we are. And this will always make us feel fearful. And this is the number one misperception that the Course in Miracles aims to correct. Every lesson the Course teaches is to help us recognize and come to the realization that we're not our bodies. So any experience of fear is not valid because there is nothing to fear, and we never experience any real loss in any form. This means that what we shouldn't do is act on any feeling that comes from the perspective of need. Because like Helen, to act on the perception of need will reinforce the misperception that you are your body. And it will keep you from learning that number one lesson the Course aims to teach, which is what will bring you the results of the peace, safety, healing, or happiness you came to the Course seeking. How we learn or demonstrate the teaching, I need do nothing, in order to experience the results we're seeking and learn what the Course is teaching, is in this way. Whenever we find ourselves thinking that we need to do anything, realize that we're accepting or choosing the ego's thought system as the truth and identifying with our body as who we are. We are not utterly forgetting our body, as the Course teaches. And to let this awareness be the cue to choose again, to choose the Holy Spirit's thought system instead, so we can practice what we're learning or apply what we're learning. Because what the Course is teaching us, what it wants us to learn, is that being happy and at peace, feeling safe and whole, is not caused by what you do in the world, but the thought system you choose to entertain and accept to be the truth. So in every moment or situation, or any moment or situation in which you find you're not at peace, you're unhappy or fearful, you experience any kind of dis-ease or discomfort in any way, recognize that it's because you're entertaining and accepting the ego's thought system. You're identifying with your body, and choose to entertain the Holy Spirit's thought system before making any decisions or taking any action. So that's it for this week. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Understanding the Language of A Course in Miracles podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or found it helpful, please leave me a review on iTunes so that others can hear about it, enjoy it, and find it helpful also. And if you have not yet done so, do subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Have a great week, and see you on the podcast next Wednesday.